Stephen Miller, who is your domestic policy president under Donald Trump, just said something extraordinary. I'm going to bookend it with a confession by Donald Trump that he just made several days ago to Kristen Welker, where he said, I don't think due process is, do I have to give due process to all the people here that we're trying to deport? I don't know if that's the Fifth Amendment privilege, showing a complete lack of respect and understanding of his obligations to defend the Constitution and its Fifth Amendment rights. Now you've got Stephen Miller, right on cue, by the way, because I said a few days ago that was the first, and not a slippery slope. The next step for Donald Trump was to try to declare some sort of martial law and suspend the Constitution. And right on cue, Stephen Miller takes to a press corps. Remember, Stephen Miller is not a lawyer, but he apparently is the chief legal architect, strategist for Donald Trump. He's the one that came up with the Alien Enemies Act to be used by Donald Trump to deport people. And he's also the one that came up with putting children in cages during the first Trump administration. That's Stephen Miller. So Stephen Miller, taking questions, says out loud, I'm going to show you the clip in a moment. Listen to this. The Constitution is clear. And that, of course, is the supreme law of the land, although he doesn't act like it, that the privilege of the writ of habeas corpus could be suspended in time of invasion. It's not a privilege of writ of habeas corpus. It's a constitutional mandate as a function of due process. So that's an option we're actually looking at. You're looking at suspending due process and habeas corpus. The only time you can do that is a time of an invasion or military operation when public safety is at risk. It's never been done because we've never been at war like that since the Civil War internally. We've never had an invasion. Even during World War II, when the Japanese did do a predatory incursion or invasion, and President Roosevelt did invoke the Alien Enemies Act and did use it to put American, German American, Italian American, Japanese American in concentration camps, in internment camps. Even then, they didn't suspend the writ of habeas corpus. They gave them the ability to have hearings, but not to Stephen Miller. To Stephen Miller, he might as well have just said, martial law has been declared. We're putting troops on the street. We're going to be using the military against Americans in violation of the Posse Comitatus Act. We're suspending the Constitution, and there goes your writs of habeas corpus. I don't want to live in a democracy where the presidency, on a whim, on a fake declaration of war against the country that's didn't even know we're at war with them, which is Venezuela, can then suspend writ of habeas corpus for people and take away their due process rights. Put a stark contrast here. You got the Supreme Court, who in the last three rulings, 6-3, 7-2, and 9-0 against the Trump administration, has said you must give due process. They just declared in a case called JGG, a 6-3 decision. They just declared, and everybody, all 9 agreed, that there needs to be a due process, proper notice, and you can't do summary removals and deportations. What part of due process rights are you not getting through your head? How many times does the Supreme Court have to tell you this? I kept saying they've been pressing a losing hand, but now it's gone further. Now they hear writ of habeas corpus. To Stephen Miller and the people around him, that's something that can be suspended because it's a privilege. I know you didn't go to law school, Stephen, but let me tell you, that's not the right analysis of the habeas corpus petition, right of somebody under our jurisprudential underpinnings. I'm Michael Popok. I'm fired up. You're here on Legal AF. Let's get to it. I'm not shocked that I have to do this hot take. I said less than 72 hours ago that Donald Trump was going to try to suspend the Constitution one way or the other, especially a president who told Kristen Welker, I don't know if is that something I need to do for due process? Let's play that clip so you understand what's going on. Talk about the body rots from the head down. This is the tone at the top in the Trump administration. Let's play the Welker clip.
Your Secretary of State says everyone who's here, citizens and non-citizens, deserve due process. Do you agree, Mr. President?
I don't know. I'm not a lawyer. I don't know.
Well, the Fifth Amendment says
I don't know. It seems it might say that, but if you're talking about that, then we'd have to have 1 million or 2 million or 3 million trials. We have thousands of people that are some murderers and some drug dealers and some of the worst people on earth, some of the worst, most dangerous people on earth. And I was elected to get them the hell out of here, and the courts are holding me from doing it.
But even given those numbers that you're talking about, don't you need to uphold the Constitution of the United States as president?
I don't know. I have to respond by saying again, I have brilliant lawyers that work for me, and they are going to obviously follow what the Supreme Court said.
Okay, so we're back. So you got a president who doesn't understand or doesn't want to understand. It's either willful blindness or it's ignorance. I don't know which is worse. That he has to uphold and defend the Constitution in all of its parts, including the Fifth Amendment right to due process. And that applies to whether you are an American citizen, a green card holder, documented or undocumented. If you're here and we're putting you through our process, our sausage maker of a criminal justice system or an immigration justice system, you get a lawyer, you get notice, you get to defend yourself. And if you lose, you're out. And if you win, you stay, or whatever's up for grabs. And the writ of habeas corpus purposefully is part of our constitutional heritage to prevent a dictator like Trump from jailing people and they can never see the light of day. We already have versions of that in this country. But you have a right to get in to a federal judge and be heard. And that is a fundamental precept of our due process rights. All Americans. I'm not even talking about the undocumented. I don't care in this analysis to the trend to Aragua. I'm talking about you and me. I'm talking about you and me and what it means to have that right and not be left to rot in a jail like the Count of Monte Cristo and have the ability. Habeas corpus, it's right there in the title, Stephen Miller. It's Latin. Have the body, right? We shall bring the body out. Let's see the body. The writ of habeas corpus. And here's what, let me play the clip of Stephen Miller now addressing reporters at the White House. Go.
Well, the Constitution is clear, and that, of course, is the supreme law of the land, that the privilege of the writ of habeas corpus can be suspended in a time of invasion. So I would say that's an option we're actively looking at. Look, a lot of it depends on whether the courts do the right thing or not.
Now, the U.S. Constitution says and mentions writ of habeas corpus, if you want to brush up on your constitutional analysis. The U.S. Constitution, Stephen Miller, says that the privilege of the writ of habeas corpus, right? Yes, I know they use the word privilege, but that's not how it's been interpreted. That's not how that term was used back then. The privilege of the writ of habeas corpus, it really means the right, shall not be suspended unless when in cases of rebellion or invasion, the public safety may require it. What invasion are we under? I defy anybody, and regardless of your political stripe or independent political party, throw open your window. Look out the door right now, or from your walk of life, man on the street, person on the street. You tell me where the invasion is. You tell me who's invading. When was the last time anybody on this podcast, on this hot take, bumped elbows, is 1 degree, 2 degree, or 10 degrees separated from Tren de Aragua, the narcotics gang? Go ahead, I got time. Isn't the very nature of an invasion that we would be able to see it? Now, the way the Trump administration, I'm not making this up now, this is from their dictionary definition. An invasion is when there's an arrival of a group of people that you are displeased with or that you oppose. So if some of my family members show up in the middle of the afternoon for a barbecue I wasn't planning to have with them, that's a predatory invasion. I can assert the Alien Enemies Act? No. And every judge that's looked at it, 3 federal judges now, in the last 72 hours, Judge Sweeney, right? Judge Rodriguez and Judge Hellerstein in Colorado, in Texas, and in New York have all said the same thing. The Alien Enemies Act is a phony. It's a fake. The very foundation of it is based on a lie. The very foundation of the Alien Enemies Act invoked by Donald Trump is that we're at war, or the equivalent of war, with Venezuela. Why? Because the Tren de Aragua gang, in their view, as declared in the proclamation, somehow took control of the Maduro regime. The Maduro regime may do business with Tren de Aragua, but they're scared of them and they don't want to be destabilized by them. That doesn't mean Tren de Aragua is running Venezuela and then they're using foot soldiers in America to attack America. Does anybody believe we're at war with the Tren de Aragua gang? And if we were, how many seconds would it take us and the U.S. military to kick their ass? And we know this is untrue because in the last 72 hours, 96 hours, there's a new memo that I did a hot take on that has been totally debunked, this theory that Maduro's regime in Venezuela is controlled by Tren de Aragua, the narcotics gang, or vice versa. Because Donald Trump's own national intelligence director, Tulsi Gabbard, had her own national intelligence consultants put together a report, 6 pages. It's on my Legal AF Substack. And it says there is no indication, no evidence of what Donald Trump has said is the basis for his Alien Enemies Act use to deport people. So we got that, right? We've got the other lie, which is where they just freed, Marco Rubio just made a big announcement like 2 or 3 days ago. We freed the hostages. They're on U.S. soil. All right. So there was a group of people who were in the opposition party to the Maduro regime. And about a year ago, they took refuge in the Argentinian consulate in Venezuela, which is Argentinian soil. And they were sort of surrounded by the Maduro camp. Somehow the Americans we were able to extract them. I don't know. It's probably like the movie Fargo. Extract them. Maybe they rode bikes or they said they were going to make a big Star Wars-like movie somewhere. Maybe that's how they got them out. And they got them out. Well, it only proves the point, Marco, that the Maduro regime is in charge. I didn't see one mention of they're being held hostage by Tren de Aragua. They're not. They're being held hostage by the Maduro regime. And that's the point. And Maduro may be terrible and depraved and a dictator who has his people under his thumb, but he's not picking a fight with America, and he's not using Tren de Aragua to destabilize the 330 million people in this country. So now you think losing hand, right? They lose. Let's just do the math. The Trump administration loses 6-3 effectively in the JGG decision by the United States Supreme Court, which says that writ of habeas corpus is appropriate, must be respected, due process must be respected for deporting, and federal judges have a role in interpreting it and deciding whether the Alien Enemies Act was properly invoked. That's against Donald Trump, led by even conservatives. That's one. Then a week or two later, 9-0, in the Obrego Garcia case, the Supreme Court confirms and affirms Judge Zinnes' ruling in Maryland and orders Donald Trump to facilitate the return and the release from prison in El Salvador of Armando Obrego Garcia. A week later, 1 o'clock in the morning, in a 7-2 decision, the Supreme Court again says that Donald Trump, don't deport people, don't send them to El Salvador, no, until we get a handle on your due process and what you're doing about it with these writs of habeas corpus. And what is Donald Trump's takeaway from those 3 major losses? This is like Dumb and Dumber, you know? So you're saying there's a chance. So they send Dumb and Dumber Stephen Miller out. He does everything but, lick the icy pole with his tongue. And he says to reporters with his little 2-piece suit, looking like, I don't know what, the Grim Reaper, saying, well, time of invasion and predatory, that's your takeaway from the 3 losses at the Supreme Court, that you're going to be able to argue that we're under an invasion by Venezuela, a predatory incursion? You've had 5 different federal judges from the D.C. Circuit Court to Maryland, to Colorado, to New York, to Texas, to the Supreme Court, all tell you the same thing. Habeas, get it through your thick skull. Habeas corpus is a part of our due process rights. You are misconstruing what the word privilege means in that, and you can't take it away except in time of war. There have only been, just in our history, going back to 1776, a president has only suspended the writ of habeas corpus 4 times. Abraham Lincoln during the Civil War. We also suspended it during the fight with the Ku Klux Klan in South Carolina, That was interesting. And in the Philippines in 1905 and after Pearl Harbor. That's it. You know, the local press says it would be an extremely aggressive move, pardon me, by Donald Trump. Are you freaking out of your mind? An aggressive move? It's an impeachable offense. It's a 25th Amendment ticket out the door into a mental asylum. And John Roberts, who I just did a hot take on, with all of his niceties and his little suit and his tie and his interview, yes, I think the presidency sometimes has to be checked for its greater excesses by the federal courts and the Supreme Court. You think so? You think that's your role? Wake up. You have a lawless, out of control, rogue president whose enablers are even worse, who, yes, are lying to the president or he's willfully denying what he sees before his eyes in all of his court losses. Get ready, Supreme Court. Cancel your summer vacations because you're going to be around a lot this summer with emergency applications brought by the American Civil Liberties Union and brought by attorneys generals all over the country and different public interest groups. And we're here for it. And I'm glad you're here for it. I'm on Legal AF. So are you. I'm the chief curator, the founder of Legal AF, the podcast. Take a moment, hit the free subscribe button as we continue our march to 700,000 subscribers with your help. The bigger we are, the more your voice is heard and the more content that you want to see is going to be delivered to you here at Legal AF. Come on over to the Substack as well for Legal AF with amazing contributions there as well. So until my next report, I'm Michael Popok. Can't get your fill of Legal AF? Me neither. That's why we formed the Legal AF Substack. Every time we mention something in a hot take, whether it's a court filing or a oral argument, come over to the Substack. You'll find the court filing and the oral argument there, including a daily roundup that I do called, wait for it, Morning AF. What else? All the other contributors from Legal AF are there as well. We got some new reporting. We got interviews. We got ad-free versions of the podcast and hot takes. Where? Legal AF on Substack. Come over now to free subscribe.